Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Running Things. My name is Riley. I'm your host. I'm also the editor over at tempojournal.com. Pretty cool episode today, special episode. We are speaking with New Balance athlete Ellie Pashley. Ellie is based down in Aireys Inlet on the Great Ocean Road in Victoria, finished 8th in the New York Marathon in 2019, and now heads over to London, one of two Australian women in the race. Going to be super exciting to see how she goes. She's had a bit of an interrupted 2020, haven't we all? Hasn't the world had an interrupted 2020? But certainly very excited to see how Ellie performs. We are doing this interview on the Thursday before race week. So Ellie flies out on Sunday. When you are watching this, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever of race week. So by now, Ellie is based over in London and the countdown towards the race begins. Hope you guys enjoy this chat with Ellie Pashley. All right, guys, super exciting today. It's London Marathon week, and I am so excited to be chatting with Australia's own Ellie Pashley. Ellie, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Riley. Thanks for having me. I've been listening to these podcasts every week, so it's nice to be on.
Oh, I feel like, you might teach me some lessons today. I think you've done more podcast episodes than I have, so.
Oh, I'm no good at it, so you can take the lead.
Now, we're recording this just under a week and a half out from the race. By the time everybody gets to see and hear this, will be in race week, which is super exciting. Talk to us about how you've been going. You're pretty open with everything and with your training, and we know you had a bit of a setback sort of middle of the year, May, June, but it looks like the last, 6 to 8 weeks have been pretty positive for you. You've built pretty well. How's everything feeling?
Yeah. So like you said, I've had a very different build up this time. I had a foot injury, which kind of took me out for all of June. I wasn't really able to run at all. And then since then I've been building back up into it. And yeah, the last 6 weeks have gone really well. I haven't probably got my mileage quite up to where I would have liked to have. And we've done a slightly different training approach to the way that we normally do it. So because I was coming off not a great base, Julian kind of adjusted my training so that, I was basically trying to get fit at the same time as trying to get marathon fit. So pretty fast, hard workouts, but with quite a lot of volume. And then I was just doing easy runs on the weekend. So rather than doing workouts within my long run, I was just trying to get Ks in for the long run. So it's gone well the last few weeks, and I got my mileage back up and my long runs up to about 38 Ks. So I'm feeling okay, but I just don't really know where I'm at. So I'm going in a little more blind than usual.
If we talk about your build up last year to obviously the New York Marathon, you finished 8th, which was a pretty amazing performance. Yeah, very different build up. You raced a half in September or maybe August, and then obviously you had the World Champs 10,000 meters at the end of September in pretty hot conditions in Doha, and then obviously had a solid month leading into New York. Does the body feel fresher at all because you haven't had the racing and the travel and stuff like that yet?
Yeah, I actually do feel a lot fresher this time around. Going into New York, I'd had a really heavy year, so I'd done a lot of races. I'd done quite a few half marathons, and then, like you said, the 10K in Doha, and then that last 5 weeks after that was really marathon specific work. So I was fairly tired going into New York, but I think I was probably also fitter than I'd ever been just because of the year of really solid training and racing that I'd had. So yeah, this is very different, and I do feel fresh. Particularly the first half of this marathon block, I felt very fresh. I've definitely been feeling a bit tired the last couple of weeks, which I'm taking that as a good sign that hopefully I've done enough training to the point where my body's actually fatigued now, and yeah. But I'm hoping that I'll recover a little bit better from this one, just because I haven't had that really long lead in, and I'm hoping to bounce back a little quicker and on to the next race, wherever that may be.
We won't spend too much time talking about New York last year because, it was so long ago, but what did you take from that, because it was like both Sinead and yourself, they're incredible performances on the day. As I said, finished 8th, just outside of PB on what is like a pretty tough course. Probably a course you're well suited to though, given your training environment. But what did you take out of New York?
Yeah, I think I got a lot of confidence from New York, and I did a different approach to racing that day. So I didn't wear a watch. I basically went out way too hard because I had no idea what pace I was running. Went through halfway well under PB pace, and thought, oh, this is either going to be a really good day or a really bad day. But yeah, it was I guess it was a good experience in that I learned that you can be a little more aggressive, and I did a big positive split, but I was still really happy with my race and didn't blow up, I guess, quite as badly as I was expecting when I saw my halfway split. But it was fun to be up there in that lead pack and competing with some of those girls who are phenomenal runners. So for me, that was a real confidence booster that I could at least run with them for maybe half the race or so. And Sinead and I went the wrong way as well, actually, fairly early on. But so even things like that, it was a good realization that it can go a bit pear-shaped, but if you keep your cool and just focus on what you're doing, then it's all okay.
You're obviously a coach yourself. Is it hard for you to, or maybe it's easier because you've made those mistakes of going out way too hard, and, massive positive split. Is that something that's sort of central? Like, do you have to remind your athletes as well, hey, not wearing a watch is okay if you want to try that, but let's not get carried away early in the race?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the athletes that I coach they always want to go into a race with a plan, which I think is really good. But a big thing that I talk to them about is not freaking out if it doesn't go to plan. And sometimes if you're doing a 5K time trial, which is fairly relevant at the moment, that's what a lot of them are doing. If your first lap is way too fast or way too slow, don't panic, just relax, and you can gain quite a few seconds in the last few laps of a track race. So I guess not getting too stressed if pacing's a little off in the early stages. But yeah, usually you want to try and keep things as even as possible. I say, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, something like that. Now, looking at like the differences between, as I say, New York is it's a pretty tough, arduous course with like some of those long bridges and a lot of climbing. London, obviously this year is completely different. How have you sort of varied where you'll do your long runs in the build up to London this year because the course is so different and it's just kind of pretty flat with a bunch of turns in it? Or are you still kind of using the hills that you get down at Aries Inlet to sort of give you strength?
Yeah, so I think probably without being injured, I would have changed my approach quite a lot, and we would have done a lot of, flat, fast road training with sharp turns, which is actually where I often do a lot of my marathon sessions on the cycling crit track in Geelong. But Julian's banned me from that this year because he didn't want me to compare to all my previous training blocks, and we've actually done quite a lot of hill work. So one of the big things with this block was trying to get fit without getting injured. And also, like I said, he didn't really want me to be comparing sessions so much. So we've done quite a few hilly tempos. We've done a few sessions on a flat looped course in Torquay of about 3Ks, I guess, just to try and prepare for that London course specifically, but more hills than usual in the get fit quick plan.
Speaking of sort of, your sort of hometown area down there at Aries Inlet, we know small towns, country towns, coastal, whatever, coastal towns sort of like to get behind their people and they're kind of sporting heroes. What's it like down there at the moment? I imagine that the town is just buzzing. Are you getting free coffees at the general store? What's the vibe like?
Actually, yeah, every time I go to the general store, the guy asks me where I've run today and what my plans are, and he knows I'm going to London now, so he always asks me when I'm leaving. But I think most people in Aries probably just think I'm a crazy person because they see me running around the streets twice a day and doing reps back and forth along some of the main roads. So I think most of them think I'm nuts, but I actually ran past a girl the other day, like right out the back in the bush, and she said, "Hey, Ali, good luck for London." So, that was quite nice. But there's not a lot of runners around Aries, and I think most of the town just think I'm mad, but that's okay.
Okay. I'm kind of fascinated by the I guess the logistics or the travel plan for, especially, in the craziness of 2020 of like you getting from Aries to London. Talk us through that, the COVID testing you have to do. I know during race week, you guys, typically the athletes stay in that hotel right next to Tower Bridge, but I think you guys are like out somewhere, kind of like a big sprawling property. Talk us through start to finish. Like, how's that all going to look for you?
Yeah, it's going to be a very different race week experience. So we've received a lot of information over the last few weeks with the protocols and what's expected of us when we're there. And we had some pre-departure things that we had to do. So we had to have a COVID test on Tuesday, and then we had to get medical clearance today from a GP. So all of that has to be sent off to the race before we're allowed to fly. The plan is that we are at this stage leaving Sunday night. So our flights have changed a little bit, but hopefully that still goes ahead as planned. So we fly, it could be interesting. We fly straight to London, and then we're met at the airport. We've got some forms and things that we have to provide for UK immigration, because I think the quarantine rules have all changed in the UK now. So that's so that we're exempt from that. And then the people from the race will meet us there, take us straight to the race hotel, which is out of the city. And we're not allowed to leave the hotel for the whole week until we go to the race. We're not supposed to interact with other athletes outside of our training group. So that will be a fairly different experience as well. There's set meal times and it's all staggered. We all get our own room, that's one positive. Masks to be worn at all times. And then I think training wise, like you said, the hotel's got some almost like a park within its grounds. So I think there's a loop that we can run around there inside the hotel grounds. So, I mean, race week, you're not running that much anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We can just, cut laps of the hotel to finish off our taper. So it'll be pretty different.
Yeah, I mean, again, very different to New York last year, when I know some athletes were like getting carried away and walking around, the whole city, or like walking around Central Park or like Midtown. So maybe you'll save your legs. Speaking of that sort of final taper week, something a lot of people are interested in. You can't win a marathon in taper week, but you can certainly kind of stuff your race up, I guess. And a taper week is something that everybody has a different kind of opinion on. How do you approach it? Especially with the added complications of a long flight in there as well.
Yeah, unlike most runners, I actually love taper week. I don't really know why everybody hates it so much. I love that feeling of having done all the work and then just running, half an hour a day we usually do one session sort of midweek with a few short marathon paced intervals, which by then often your legs are feeling pretty good and fresh. So I think I always really enjoy it. It might be a little bit different without anything else to do. I'm not sure if I'll maybe go a little bit stir crazy, but I'm actually quite looking forward to it. And like you said, I'm one of those people that's really bad at not just sitting still and doing nothing in the lead into a race, particularly if I'm somewhere like New York or a new city. I do tend to want to explore a bit. So this will be forced rest, which will be really good. The flight's usually not too bad going over to Europe. So I think the time difference will be 8 or 9 hours, but them being behind us, if we can just stay up that first day, I think it won't be too bad getting onto London time. And our race starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I think Sinead and I are going to be up very, very early that day, because we have to get from out of town right into the city centre. So it might not be such a bad thing to be still half on Australian time anyway.
How Yeah, speaking of like that kind of forced downtime during the week and probably time off your legs, are you someone like, how do you kind of pass the time? Do you enjoy, do you sort of need distractions normally? So you're not, you don't want to run the race 50 times before race day. Are you reading books? Are you on YouTube, Netflix? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I try to mix it up, I think, with things that are going to inspire me and also things that are going to relax me. So I do like watching some running videos on YouTube, maybe other marathons or, yeah, usually some kind of sporting video or movie that I like to pump myself up. But I also can get a little too G'd up too early. So usually American sitcoms on Netflix I find are probably the best thing for me to relax. Just, half-hour episodes of something that I've seen before often. That's what really relaxes me, and that's what I tend to do. Particularly I might watch something inspiring the day before the race, but because we've got a whole week leading in, I'll probably be just watching a fair bit of very mind-numbing Netflix to get through that first bit, so I don't get too amped up too early.
Now with the you said you've got like kind of like set and staggered meal times. I imagine it's like, your typical sort of hotel restaurant sort of set up, fairly open. Like let's say you jump in there and Bridget Cosguy's in there or Vivian Cheriot or something like that. Any mind games where you sort of be trying to beat them to the juice counter or anything like that? They might not be totally aware of Ellie Pashley. It's your chance to sort of get in their heads a little bit. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about like how I could poison their food and drink before the race, but no, I think actually we're actually not really allowed to interact at all. So there probably won't be too many mind games. I was trying to work out a plan because the pace groups are going to be probably not ideal for me as far as my race plan goes. So I was trying to work out a way that I could try and make my own little group of runners to run at a pace between the two pace groups. But because we can't really speak to anyone or interact, I'm not sure how that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the East African runners often seem very relaxed in the race hotel leading in. So I don't think they'll be too worried about me trying to stir them up.
I remember, Ali, last year speaking with Brett and Jack, I think the day after London, and we were just kind of talking through the day and everything that happened before the race and after the race. And they were kind of surprised that you get to, well, in a normal major or in a normal London, everybody gets bussed to like the start line really early, like a couple of hours before the start. And then you're kind of in this kind of holding tent for a couple of hours. And the boys were saying that like as soon as they got in there, all the East Africans pretty much either had like pillows or yoga mats and just lied down and went to sleep. And the guys are sitting there like, what is happening here? Like totally not expecting it. Have you experienced anything like that, or are you prepared for something like that? Are you going to be packing a pillow for the start line? How does that work?
Yeah, it's funny that they say that because that is absolutely true. The East Africans they're so relaxed that they can just have a nap a couple of hours before a race. And at a lot of the races in Japan, the Japanese runners are in there. Again, they've got mats laid out on the floor, but they're doing stretches and activation exercises for about 3 hours before the marathon actually starts. So I always quite enjoy that that time while you're waiting to go to the start line and just watching all the different cultures and the way that they approach their pre-race routine. But I'm usually one for, well, I'm often there with Sinead, so we usually just lay there and chat, or I might listen to music as it gets a little bit closer. And yeah, there's not any sleeping, but certainly not 2 hours worth of activation exercises. So I think everybody does it a bit differently.
Talking about, you mentioned before about the pace groups. What are the whispers about the pace groups this far out? And have you, especially given it's a much different course or a much different race this year, have you sort of settled on a plan for how you're going to approach it?
Yeah, so I mean, the pace groups will probably change as it gets closer. They often do, but at the moment they're talking about there's going to be a couple of really fast ones for the women, so under 220, and then there's going to be two in the 220s, so probably one low to mid 220s, and then another one at around the Olympic qualifying time, which is 229.30. I didn't really know where I was going to be at, so I didn't want to make a decision on that until it got a lot closer. But yeah, I would have loved to have thought that I could go out with the faster pace group. And I mean, every race that I've done of recent times, I've basically just tried to run with Sinead for as long as I can until I die. But yeah, I think realistically, going by my training the last couple of weeks, I don't think I'm in the shape to go that high risk approach this time. And I really do want to try and do a negative split in a marathon because it's something that I've never done before. So yeah, Julian and I have had a bit of a chat about it, and I'm probably looking at going with the Olympic qualifying time pace group. Like I said before, if I can recruit some other runners, because I don't think I'm going to be the only one in that situation where, yeah, we don't really fit into a particular category. So if I can recruit some other runners to maybe make a little pack in between, or I think it's going to also come down to a lot of decision making on the day. So seeing how I'm feeling running that pace, making decisions as to whether or not I want to push on a little bit or stick with that group. I mean, I don't even know if I'm fit enough to stick with that group for the whole time at this stage. But yeah, I'm hoping probably over the next week, I've got a couple of small sessions to do, and I'm hoping with a taper, I'm doing a shorter, more aggressive taper this time around. So I think I'm not probably going to feel good until just before the race. So yeah, I mean, you never know. And if the pace groups change a little bit, I might change my mind. But I'm probably going to go a bit more of a conservative approach to what I did in New York. And I'm going to wear a watch this time to control myself. So yeah.
Very good. How do I ask this? Are you concerned about, not concerned, no, that's not the right word. Let me start that again. If we talk about the Olympic qualifying time, the 2:27.30, you're currently sitting third on the list of 3 Australians that would theoretically go to Tokyo 2021. Is that something that, I mean, and you're obviously well inside, and someone like Millie Clark or Jess Trengrove or someone else is going to have to do something pretty special to take your spot. But is that something that's on your mind? Is that something you're thinking about and thinking, geez, I'd really love to get back into second position or become the fastest Australian? Is that something you think about going into a race like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a number of girls that could definitely knock my time off, and Millie and Jess, like you said, and are probably a couple of other runners that are coming up in sort of into the marathon now. So I'm certainly not feeling safe in that third position. And I was hoping that to use London actually as a race to try and lower my time, just to make myself feel a little more comfortable. I still don't think that anybody, probably other than Sinead, I don't think it's going to be very hard to be safe in that team, basically. But yeah, I don't know that this is going to be the race to do that, just because I'm not quite sure that I'm in that shape yet. But I'm hoping that we get another opportunity, maybe early next year, to do a marathon, and obviously for the other girls as well. I'm sure they'll get an opportunity to do another race too. But yeah, I definitely don't think that 2:26.20 is going to be the third time for that team. I think it's going to be quite a bit faster, and I'm prepared for that, and I'm going to do whatever I can to try and get that spot. But yeah, I'm also aware that there are a number of other girls that are more than capable of that too. So it'll be very interesting.
I think as athletics fans and as marathon fans, we are so lucky right now. Like, we are in the middle of this amazing period of depth for Australian women's marathoning, right? And it's so great as well to see that the women's side is so competitive, and it's arguably it's more competitive than the men's side. We arguably have more women who are going to put themselves in contention for the Olympics marathon than on the men's side. So does that competitiveness that has to be a good thing, right? Like it should be hopefully driving all of you to achieve better times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it has in the last few years. It seems like the times are just getting quicker and quicker. And I think a big part of that is, I mean, for myself as well, seeing what the girls were doing 5 years ago. And once they started running under 2:30 fairly consistently, it probably inspired me as well to think, oh, well, if these guys can do it, then it's definitely possible. And every time somebody sets that bar a little bit higher, I think it puts a bit of fire in everybody's belly. And yeah, you can't, you definitely can't just relax on running the qualifying time as a means of getting into the team. Now you have to take as much time off that qualifying time as you can. So it's pushing everybody to run faster, and it's really exciting to be a part of that as well.
Now let's talk more about the race. It's 19 laps of a 2.2K or something like that course in St. James Park. A lot of I think left-hand turns. No crowd at all. What's the like? Have they said, are they going to be doing anything for the atmosphere? Is there just going to be Elton John pumping through the speakers, or is it going to be silent? What's that going to be like?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's going to be like. There was mention early on of some sort of virtual crowd. I don't really know what that entails. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be hard to know what it's like until we're in the race. And I think running in a pack will be okay, particularly, 19 laps of the same course. I think it will get really challenging if you get dropped from the pack early and you're running solo. I think that's where it'll be really testing, because as we all know, when you're having a bad day in a marathon, the people on the sidelines giving you encouragement, and that's what I often try and draw a lot of motivation from. So I think it will be quite fun until you're running solo, and then, it'll be a bit of a grind home. But, I mean, like I said, I've done a lot of training on 2.2K loops before, and I quite enjoy the switch off element that you get with that. And I think this race will definitely be the same. While you're feeling good, it'll just be interesting once things start getting hard.
I think tactically it's interesting as well. I mean, obviously it depends if you are, if you're racing kind of against the clock to try and hit a time, but I think everybody, in the heat of battle kind of gets caught up in positioning and racing as well. As you say, if you're starting to get dropped from the pack, you kind of have to, given that you're going to be able to see them the whole time, it's kind of watching them just drift away from you in slow motion. And the opposite is also true, right? Like if you decide to go to the front and go out ahead of the pack, it's not like you can make a quick getaway or a quick escape from the pack and kind of get lost in the crowd or in the city, because they're going to be kind of right behind you, watching you the whole time. Do you think it will just, I don't think we're ever likely to see another race like this.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I don't know, maybe going forward, if the situation with COVID doesn't change for a while, there may be some more marathons like this, but it will completely change the dynamics of the race. And that's actually another reason why in my training we did some hilly tempos and sort of sessions that were going to involve a lot of breaking in rhythm, because Julian is, I guess, under the impression that it probably will be like that, and there'll be surges and those times where you have to make that decision whether you get back onto that pack, or you see someone ahead falling off the pack in front of you and you use that as motivation to try and sort of push yourself to get up to that person. And I'm thinking that what might happen is, because the pace groups are so fast too, there might actually be some carnage at the front of the race. And that's always good if you're coming from the back and you're feeling good, that someone in front of you to draw you on and try to catch them, just to get that, particularly in a race like this when you're sort of fighting for position. So trying to finish one position higher, which happened a bit in New York as well last year, which I found really helpful in the last 5Ks. So yeah, but I've hoped for that in the past, and it hasn't happened. So you never know. But yeah, it'll be a very, very interesting to see how the race plays out in the men's and the women's, I think.
I've been looking through, I guess, like the news and the media center for the London Marathon this week, and I haven't been able to find information on hydration on the course. Like, is it going to be a permanent kind of setup like they had in the Doha Marathon, or is it like how do you know how that's going to be managed?
Yeah, I actually haven't heard exactly how often we're going to have drinks or anything like that. But I think being a 2 point whatever K loop, it probably makes it logistically a lot easier for them. They can use the same tables. I'm not sure if they're going to have one or two spots on the loop, but yeah, we have to prepare and pack all our own drink bottles as we usually do anyway. And I'm sure there'll be some extra hygiene measures in place there. But yeah, I'm not sure how frequently they're going to have them or how that's all going to work, but I'm sure they'll fill us in on that during race week. But yeah, hopefully it's not too hot and the hydration thing's not too much of an issue, but we'll see.
What is your kind of current fueling strategy for a marathon? And is it something we know some people get like really caught up in it and really fixated, and if they miss a bottle or if they miss a station, it's like pretty serious, whereas some people are a lot more like kind of go with the flow and adaptable. How does that work for you?
Yeah, I've probably got a little more into it this year. I've been working with Jess Rothwell, who's the dietitian at the VIS, just because prior to that, I basically we were winging it a little in as far as how much nutrition I was taking on and at what points. And in most races, they'll have the personal drink tables every 5Ks. So what I usually do is I actually put a drink out every 5Ks, knowing that I don't need to take all of them, but they're there if I want them. So I use the Morton gels and I just attach that to a bottle of water. And I might have 5 of those throughout the race, usually with 1 or 2 caffeine ones in there. I like to put a caffeine one near the end in case I'm really struggling. But I hadn't done a whole lot with electrolytes before. So this year, in this race, I'm going to do it a little bit differently, and I'll have some electrolytes in some of my bottles as well. Not that I've ever had any issues with cramping or dehydration, but I probably do need to dial in a little more on that and try a few different things. I find it very variable in races as to how much I can take on. So sometimes on a cold day, I struggle to get a lot of water down, and I think in the past I've drank too much water, more than I needed. So yeah, and then in other days, like probably in New York, I was a bit too wary of that, so I perhaps didn't drink enough, and I threw a few of my last bottles away just because I wasn't feeling very good. When in hindsight, I probably should have just forced them down. So yeah, it's all still trial and error, and I think every race you learn something more about nutrition. So yeah, this will be another good learning experience, and then I'll probably do some proper testing after this, particularly hopefully leading into Tokyo next year. If I happen to be selected for that, we'll have to get very serious on the hydration strategy for the heat.
Now, with your kind of an interrupted prep, and it's as we've spoken about already, it's like a very different marathon for you. And talking about, potentially going out with that, going out at that Tokyo standard, have Julian and yourself spoken about what success looks like coming out of this marathon? Like, do you have hey, if I run this time, no matter what place I come, but if I run this time, I'm going to be happy? Or is it just kind of, hey, let's see what the day brings us? How do you do that with an interrupted build-up?
Yeah, it's been very much let's see what the day brings. I'm a little unsure as to how satisfied I'll be with this one, to be honest, because I think once you've run a certain time and also knowing that this is a really flat, fast course with an amazing field, it's basically an opportunity to run fast if you're fit. I feel like I'm probably going to be a little disappointed no matter what happens. But yeah, I think in a normal scenario that wouldn't really bother me. I'd just think, oh, that's fine. I'll just go and have a crack and see what happens, because there's always another race around the corner. This time it's a little different because we just don't really know when the next race is going to be, and the whole trip is there's probably a little more effort involved as far as when we come back we have to do a 2-week hotel quarantine, And we're actually a little unsure about getting back at the moment because of all the flight caps coming into Australia. So my main concern is that if I have a shocking race and then I either get stuck in the UK for months or have to sit in a hotel room by myself for a couple of weeks, it might be a bit of a tough time. But I mean, I'd rather go and risk it and see what happens than sit here waiting for races to happen. So I'm just going to take the opportunity and maybe allow myself to, how do I say it? Like, recognize that I might not be satisfied with my time because it's probably not going to be a PB, but that's okay. And it's going to be a really good experience and something totally different. And hopefully this training block will give me some insight into how my body responded to that style of training as well, which might help in the next round once, we have another marathon on the cards.
I completely had not even thought about the fact that you have to do a 2-week quarantine when you get back to Australia. I mean, if you do have a good race, amazing. You'll get to spend sort of 2 weeks with your thoughts thinking, wow, how good was that? You'll be replaying the race in your head, countless times over that 2 weeks. Have you given any thought, like on a practical, like, life sense, how are you going to fill those 2 weeks? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I've thought about it a bit. I've been trying not to think about it too much, just because I'm not very good at being stuck in a small space and not being able to do anything, as probably most runners aren't. So I've spent a bit of time thinking about what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and pack some things in my bag. I mean, not running is no problem after a marathon. I'm okay with that, but I don't think I could do nothing for 2 weeks. So I'll probably take some exercise gear, and I was thinking about taking a skipping rope just in case I go really crazy. And some books and things like that to get me through. But I've had a few people suggest making a daily plan of activities and things that you're going to get done throughout the day. I might try and do some physio courses or learn some things while I'm in there as well, because it's a good opportunity to do the stuff that you usually put off because you're too busy. But I'm not sure how that's going to be. Most people have come out of it and said it was okay, so I'm just telling myself that.
Now, last sort of question about London. Obviously, if we go back to New York, 8th place, an amazing race. Probably, I think everyone would agree you let yourself down after the race, though. You didn't even make it out on Sunday night.
Yeah. I was quite disappointed with my post-race performance, actually. I felt really, really sick. We had a dinner after the race that was at this Brazilian barbecue banquet. So it was like this meat banquet thing. And we'd had a few beers in the afternoon, and I think, my stomach was not in a good place after God knows how many gels in the race, and then beers afterwards, and then all sorts of things going in. So, I actually went home pretty early, and I let Sinead go on and party on into the night with you guys. But I'm hoping to redeem myself after London.
If you can, right? Like, will there be any, like, I guess at the hotel, will you be able to have a bit of a party? Like, how will that work?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I was hoping that they might be a little more relaxed after the races happened, and I assume there'll be something at the hotel. But, maybe we'll still be on no interaction rules. So, Sinead and Brett and I will have to have our own little party because I think we're the only ones left. So, yeah.
I'm sure you'll find a way anyway with those two.
Yeah.
I was also now knowing that you've got to do a 2-week quarantine when you come back, I was going to ask, obviously last year you had quite a long season in New York in November. Obviously that was kind of the end of your season, but London, start of October. Have you thought about, and I don't even know if this race will go ahead, but have you thought about, would you entertain something like the Zatopek in December? Are you still thinking about the 10,000 meters for Tokyo, or is it just all in on the marathon?
Yeah, I'm really keen to try and do Zatopek in December if it goes ahead. And the 2-week quarantine does make it a little tricky in that we can't run at all for that time. But I'm still hoping that, with my shorter build up, I can recover well from the race and then get back into some pretty hard training, perhaps a little earlier than usual. And we haven't really had any word on Zatopek, but I'd love to do it because I missed it last year. It was a bit too close to New York and I was having a break. So the 10,000 meters is certainly something I'm still very interested in for Tokyo, and there's every chance that I'll get knocked out of the marathon, and there's also every chance that I could get knocked out of the 10,000 as well. But that would definitely be an option that I want to keep open. So I'm going to try and race Zatopek and maybe another 10K if I get the chance next year too, just to see. I'm not sure what sort of time I'll have to run to get a spot in the team for that, but I'm definitely going to keep working towards the 10K as well.
Yeah, it must be virtually impossible to plan out even the first quarter or the first half of 2021, right?
Yeah, we don't know anything about any races and whether or not they're going ahead. It does seem like internationally there's a little more movement in that area, and some races are planning on happening, but there's already been race cancellations in Japan in the first half of the year. So it's very different. Like coming into this year, I felt like I had the whole year planned out as far as a race schedule goes, and I'm probably used to it now, but it's very much limbo, and that's why I think we're so lucky that London Marathon are going ahead and that we've got the opportunity to race, having been entered in the field for April. So yeah, I'm just going to take every opportunity I can get because it's all very unknown.
Hey, we'll be watching. I don't know how we'll be watching, but we'll be watching the race on the weekend. Obviously, all of Australia will be watching, and we wish you all the very best. And look, when you're stuck in hotel quarantine on the way back, maybe we'll chat to you again. But good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, man, I cannot imagine going over there, staying in a hotel for a week, racing, and then coming back to Australia and being faced with 2 weeks in quarantine. It's a lot to go through, and it's a massive sacrifice. Super excited for the race. I think Ellie's going to do really well. It is going to be a fast race, and it's a fast group of women. It's a fast course. If the weather conditions are anywhere near ideal, then we should see some pretty special stuff throughout the field. And Ellie and her coach Julian are pretty experienced. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. If you are in Australia and you want to watch the race, it's at a pretty ideal time slot. I think, the women's race is 7 a.m. Sunday in London, which I think if you are on the eastern side of Australia, Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, that's about 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Now, if you're someone who enjoys a refreshment at the end of a long training week, then it's going to be pretty ideal. Check your check the web for information on how to watch the race. I know BBC are covering it. You've got to expect that there'll be like a live stream on Facebook or YouTube or something like that. It would be absolutely criminal if there wasn't. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the London Marathon on Sunday. I'll be cheering for the Aussies, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching Running Things here on YouTube. If you haven't already, do us a favor, hit that little subscribe button. It really helps out our channel. Also, tell your friends, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram @Tempo Journal.